History of Schiaparelli Perfumes, Part 2, and there's definitely going to be another part because there's a lot of information that I want to go over. First up, continuing her rivalry with Chanel, the two mostly just had a war of words. They were pretty cordial when they were in each other's company, except for one famous story. Costume balls were still a thing in Paris leading up to World War II, and at one of the last balls before the German occupation, Chanel dressed up as herself, very Chanel move, and Schiaparelli dressed as a surrealist tree. I couldn't find a photo, unfortunately, so this will have to do. Now, Chanel dared Schiaparelli to dance with her, and when Schiaparelli agreed, Chanel danced her into a chandelier that was lit with candles and set her on fire. She was fine though, and then the other attendees were like, oh, how fun and delightful, and they put the fire out with soda water. I wish that I had been there for this. I would have been in the background like... Okay, now let's talk about her collaboration with Dali. As I mentioned, Schiaparelli was an artist at heart, and she was friends with all of these really famous surrealist artists. And her partnership with Dali led to some of her most iconic work. Around this time, she started releasing her collections as themed. So she had a circus theme, she had the zodiac theme, and she was one of the first fashion designers to do this. So for their collaboration, first up, this is the Tears dress. This is the front of the skeleton dress, and here's the back. And then probably most famous, this is the lobster dress. And the lobster dress was famously worn by the Duchess of Windsor, Wallis Simpson. She wore it for a Vogue shoot right before her marriage to the former King Edward VIII. This also rankled Chanel because Wallis had been Chanel's client. Alright, now we have enough backstory to get into the fragrance. It all started in the late 20s with a limited edition perfume called S. Schiap believed that the first letter of her last name had mystical qualities, and it became a motif in her work. In 1934, she released a trio of perfumes at the same time, and this is super interesting. They were meant to be worn at different times of day, so morning, noon, and night. They were called Souci, Salut, and Schiap. But her fragrances didn't really take off until the 1936 release of Shocking. The bottle was modeled after the dressmaker dummy for her very famous client, Mae West. And here she is wearing a Schiaparelli dress. The flowers that you see up top were created by Dali, and they were meant to evoke the perfume wafting in the air. Okay, and here is my bottle of Shocking. You can see the beautiful Shocking pink box. Here she is open in the box. All right, now this design with the dome was only in production from about 1936 to roughly 1950. And I don't know the exact year of this perfume, but it would have been obviously within that time period. On the dome, you can see it's got a lace detail and it says Schiaparelli right here. And then here's my bottle. It's in pretty good condition. The colors are very vibrant. It's actually unopened, so the reason why the perfume is down to here is just due to evaporation because she's old. I want to smell it so bad, but there's actually a crack up here on the stopper, so I'm afraid if I try to open it, it will just break, and we don't want to do that because she's too beautiful. So I'm just going to dream about her. And I've run out of time again, so part 3 coming soon. We'll talk about the rest of her fragrance and about what happened to Elsa Schiaparelli. Stay tuned.